This is Josh Ronquist here for Heavy Debriefings. Of course, it's only me that works with Heavy Debriefings, so I'm not entirely sure why I say that. I believe it's just because it's the business that I've called myself after 10 years of being that drummer guy, I suppose. But I just got done making my first BracketFight, and that had to do with different metal bands. And I noticed it wasn't as complete as it could have been, so I kept searching around. And I found another one that had my interest of the best metal albums BracketFight. Well, first of all, I'm going to be shuffling this because I want absolutely no idea what this is going to be. Now, I did a quick look and I saw there was a lot of albums. I tried not to pay attention to which ones they were. Hopefully I've forgotten most of them. And as I pointed out before, there might be some bands here I love, there might be some bands that I'm indifferent to, and there's some bands that I noticed this poop emoji just happens to be on this page. Now, could that be for the actual brackets, or could that be for the bands? But seriously, there's just some bands I'm never going to be into, and that's okay. But after several more reshuffles, let's get into this matchup mode. Now, I might be pissing you off with what I choose, and that's okay. You might fully agree with me. That's okay. You might be somewhere in between. That's okay as well. This is just my list, and I'm not going by what's the most influential or what is, the biggest bands in the world kind of stuff here. That's not my forte. My forte is picking out the music that means something to me. And some of those are the biggest bands in the world, and some of those aren't. So we'll see what we got here. Matchup mode coming up here. Here we go. Diamond Head Lightning to the Nations versus Anthrax Among the Living. I'm gonna admit, right offhand, I only know a handful of Diamond Head albums, and that includes some of the newer ones that I've gotten promos for, and of course, the stuff that Metallica covered, because how could you not? Anthrax, this is gonna be controversial to start things off. I don't like Joey Belladonna's vocals. I don't. John Bush was the best singer of Anthrax, and his 4 albums are the best Anthrax albums. Now that I've gotten rid of all the squares who got pissed off about that, I'm actually going to choose Anthrax Among the Living because I'm more familiar with it. Dream Theater Images and Words versus the Melvins with Houdini. I enjoy the Melvins a lot. I actually got to talk to Dale Crover a few years back. Being able to promote one of their Minnesota shows, of course at the now defunct Grumpy's Bar. And I've always respected the Melvins. I think they do incredible work. They write music for themselves, which is so great to see, and the fact that they made a fan base off of making the music that they want to make, how could you not respect that? But it's also going up against possibly my favorite progressive metal album of all time with Images and Words, which doesn't really seem fair. I mean, it's going to go to Dream Theater because this album has meant so much near and dear to me. I actually bought this album in New Jersey, of all places, when my high school band took a trip to New York City. On the way there, one of the buses got a flat tire. We were stuck at a local New Jersey mall for 6 hours. I went into an FYE, and I was down to either 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence or Images and Words. This would be my second Dream Theater album that I would buy. The first one was Train of Thought, which I bought the same day as Opeth's Deliverance. And I went with Images and Words because I knew Pull Me Under was the biggest song from the band, even though I never heard it up to that point. I wasn't really checking out YouTube in 2004, 2005. It was one of those days, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, YouTube, not really a thing. So, I was just going off of what I've heard before. So I fell in love with this album, listening to Images and Words, especially one of the least metal songs I've ever made, Another Day. Listening to that while going through Manhattan at night, one of the most magical moments I've ever had. And that's why I was a virgin for so long. But that said, Dream Theater, Images and Words. Korn versus... I don't know. But I don't like Korn. If you saw my last video, you know why. This, I can't read the logo. My eyes are shitty, for one thing, but also it's a metal logo. I don't know what it is. And I will still take that over Korn. Attack Attack versus Number of the Beast. I've never actually listened to Attack Attack outside of that song Stick Stickly because that was fucking everywhere when that came out. I couldn't avoid that no matter what I tried to do. Versus Number of the Beast, an album which I think is okay. And I'll pick the okay album. Jane Doe versus Alcest. I say Alcest, it might be Alcest. I've heard it so many different ways, and I can be bad at pronunciations. I try to do my due diligence, but oh boy, this one's actually really tough. Jane Doe is my favorite original metalcore album. It's the perfect example of a relationship breaking. Whereas this album, which I don't know how to pronounce, and I don't want to look like a fucking idiot trying to pronounce it, is an album that is near and dear to my heart and actually might be my favorite Alcest album, which is the perfect display of what black gaze is. And if you checked out my metal genre tier list, you know black gaze is very important to me. So, yeah, I'm gonna go Alcest. Morbid Saint versus Black Sabbath's Master of Reality. Morbid Saint I haven't listened enough to, but everything I have heard I've thoroughly enjoyed. And Black Sabbath, like I've said so many times, and I will never stop saying it, just because you were first, just because you're influential, just because you're innovative at the time, does not mean you're the best. But that said, Master of Reality and Volume 4 are the two best Black Sabbath albums of the Ozzy era. So, Master of Reality. Meshuggah's Nothing versus Morbid Angel's Altar of Madness. My favorite Meshuggah album versus my favorite Morbid Angel album. That is pretty tough. Oh. I'm going to do something I don't normally do. No, I'm not going to do that. I was going to say which one I enjoyed live more, as I've seen both bands twice. I'm not going to do that. I was going to do that. But what hits me harder? Meshuggah has that tone that so many bands have been trying to perfect and replicate but will never duplicate. And Morbid Angel is one of the best death metal bands around, not without its flaws, but those flaws are few and far between compared to the whole catalog. Whereas Meshuggah, you know what you're getting with Meshuggah from Nothing onwards. I would dare even say Destroy, Erase, Improve onwards, but specifically Nothing. And that was the first album like that. Whereas Altars of Madness is one of those albums that I can just keep going back to for that classic death metal sound. Not my favorite death metal band or death metal album, but it's one that I can easily go back to and enjoy anytime. So yeah, I'm gonna go Morbid Angel. To Megatherion from Celtic Frost versus Dark Tranquillity Atoma. God damn it, why would you do this to me? This is a tough one for me. I love every single Celtic Frost album, even Cold Lake. I can appreciate it on a level that Tom G. Warrior simply can't enjoy. But To Megatherion is not my favorite Celtic Frost album. That would go to Monotheist, or Monotheist, however you want to pronounce it. Dark Tranquillity's Atoma, it was the only album that I first heard that I did not enjoy right away. But the more I heard it, the more I gave it a chance, it became an album that I just simply cannot deny. And I feel that way about every single Dark Tranquillity album. I feel like they're one of the most underrated and underappreciated melodeath bands. If this was Monotheist, I'd be going with Celtic Frost, but as it's not, I'm going Dark Tranquillity. Anthrax versus Dream Theater. And you know, it's funny, I know so many people shit on James LaBrie and his vocals, and that's not to say he hasn't had his troubles over the years. I mean, I've seen it live, I've seen it in studio, and the guy can be, a little pushbacky. I still think he's a perfect fit for Dream Theater. I can't imagine a better voice. Whereas in Anthrax, everyone seems to love Joey Belladonna, but he's not my guy. John Bush is my guy. And this would be a little harder for me to do if this was any of the John Bush era albums, but it's not. But here we got Images and Words, and it's one of my favorite albums of all time, so it's almost not even fair. But yeah, Dream Theater. The album I don't know versus Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast. If someone's watching this and checking it out in the comment section, I would really appreciate knowing which one this is, because I simply haven't heard it. To me, it looks like a stoner doom metal album. I could be very wrong about that. It could be psychedelic or something. Due to the image quality and my eyes just being complete shit, I don't know what it is. But I'm still going to go with an album that I think is okay from a band that I think is alright. Alcest versus Master of Reality, like, that's even an option for me. I know so many people would choose Black Sabbath because, they're one of the most legendary bands of all time. And they're so influential. They're not influential in my life. It might be influential to some of the bands that I listen to, but not to me. Alcest is. Morbid Angel versus Dark Tranquillity, easily. Easily. And I say that with loving this Morbid Angel album. I'm going Dark Tranquillity. Dream Theater versus Number of the Beast. Again, one of my favorite albums of all time versus a fine, I guess, album. Images and Words. Alcest versus Dark Tranquillity. I have to go Alcest here. I do. Because they are just the band that's a part of that Black Haze sound, and I do love the melodic death metal, but this is not my favorite Dark Tranquillity album. It's one that I've really grown to love and appreciate. But I've never stopped loving this one. And now Dream Theater versus Alcest. Ooh. Soon, at some point, maybe before you see this video, maybe after you see this video, I'm gonna do a video where I give my opinions on some bands and stuff like that, and just kind of go from there. And I do gotta say some stuff about Dream Theater. Alcest, I don't have as much to say. It was really scary back in 2013 when I interviewed Nige and he said they were no longer going to do metal stuff. I'm so glad he changed his mind on that. But again, like, this album is like one of the most definitive Black Gaze albums to me. Whereas, again, this is one of my favorite albums of all time. And even though things have kind of changed with my feelings with Dream Theater, after they were one of my favorite band for so long, for well over a decade, they were my favorite band. I can't even think of how many years they were my favorite band. I'm still going to give it to Images and Words on this side of the bracket. Okay, here we go with some fun. White Zombie's Astro Creep 2000 versus Megadave's Countdown to Extinction. Songs that I've overheard as singles over and over and over again that I'm sick of versus songs that I've heard over and over and over again that I'm sick of. I guess of those two styles, I appreciate more of what Megadeth does, but again, just like I was talking about where I do want to make a video talking about like bigger bands and my real feelings behind them, yeah, Megadeth is one of those where I do have my thoughts about them. And, with this basically essentially being their Black Album or Black Album Part 1, because Cryptic Writings was a perfect Part 2 to that. Or was it Euthanasia? Hell, the whole fucking trilogy of albums right there. Yeah, fuck it, I'll kill Megadeth, but they're probably going to get knocked out in the next round unless something hilarious happens coming up now. Okay, Linkin Park Hybrid Theory versus Pitch Shifter, a band I am not familiar with versus a band that I actually enjoyed the first two albums of, so that's pretty easy. Hybrid Theory. Can't wait for them to get pissed off when this comes back around. Oh, no. Slaughter of the Soul by At the Gates versus Still Life from Opeth. Oh. That is simply not fair. Progressive death metal versus Swedish melodic death metal. I have to go Still Life because it's the perfect concept album. It's so dark, it's scary at times, and the songs are just masterclasses of progressive death metal where At the Gates is very influential, and this is easily one of their best albums. Some might say it's overrated or overplayed. Well, if it's overplayed, that's your goddamn fault, no one else's. Yeah, I love Slaughter of the Soul. I do. I learned so much off that album, but Still Life just hit me harder. Burzum versus Tool. Oh. Okay. Burzum, Varg is a piece of shit, and I don't like Tool. Yeah, and another one of my holy shit, I can't believe you just said that quotes. I don't like Tool, but as much as I don't like Tool, I would easily take Tool over a racist piece of shit like Varg. So, Tool. Gojira! With From Mars to Sirius, possibly my second favorite album from them behind Magma. Oh my god, I did it again. Blew your minds. And Bull Thrower. If you knew what I was doing there, you are a friend of mine. With The Fourth Crusade, which might be their best album. Legendary band versus a band that means more to me. And it feels weird actually picking Gojira over Bolt Thrower, but that's what I'm gonna do. Be completely honest with you, I'm not that familiar with it, but I do believe that's some Bring Me the Horizon, if I remember correctly, versus the Black Album. I've never been a fan of Bring Me the Horizon. I remember friends all the way back in high school were trying to get me into them back when they were doing their, tongue-in-cheek, quirky deathcore stuff, which I never got into. That quintessential, let's write funny names for our songs because it makes up for everything else that we've got going on, versus what is considered to be possibly the greatest hard rock metal album of all time. And I think it's fine, as I can't name a single song off this Bring Me the Horizon album, and I actually know songs off of here. I have to be fair, I'll go with the Black Album. Ooh, spicy! Amon Amarth's Twilight of the Thunder God verse is Helmet's Betty, which I did see in full, and that was a great fucking show. It was the only time I've seen Helmet, but fuck, it ruled. Amon Amarth. If you checked my last bracket fight one, you will have known that I said I haven't really enjoyed much of Amon Amarth since With Odin on Our Side. And that did start with what people consider to be the best Amon Amarth album. I disagree. I think it's With Odin on Our Side. This was the beginning of, I would say this is like their Back in Black. This is like the perfect image of everything that they were going to be doing going forward. With some experimentation in there, of course, being able to change things up for at least one song off of each album, but, the overall sense of all of it, I mean, if you've heard Twilight of the Thunder God, you've heard them for the last 15 or so years. But with Betty, it's not on song. It is, or in the meantime, level of quality. But it is a great motherfucking album. And I'm going Betty. Power Slave versus Limp Bizkit's Significant Other. I have a problem with this list already because they're showing off multiple albums from the same bands where they could replace them with any other band. I don't think Maiden needs to have two of them on here. Yeah. And even though I think Iron Maiden is fine, I've seen them live back in 2016 when Ghost was opening for them. I believe it was 2016 anyways. Might have been 2017. Second half of 2010s. You know what I'm getting at. Iron Maiden, yeah, they're fine. And I also saw Limp Bizkit opening for Metallica. My very first show. Summer Sanitarium 2003, Metallica, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, Deftones canceled because Chino was too high, and Mudvayne. Fuck Limp Bizkit. I have to go Maiden, even though Maiden probably won't make it the next round. And here we go, Countdown to Extinction versus Hybrid Theory. Oh, I'm going to be pissing off so many people, but I don't care. Hybrid Theory. Still Life versus Lateralis. Again, one of my favorite concept albums of all time versus a band that I simply just don't care about. Gotta go Opeth. Gojira versus the Black Album. At one point in time, I probably would have won with the Black Album. But I completely burned myself out on Metallica, and that's my own fault. But this is also my own bracket fight, so I'm gonna pick what I fucking want to, and I'm going with Gojira. Betty versus Power Slave, another one I know I'm gonna be pissing you people off by saying goodbye to Betty and choosing Power Slave. No, I'm not. I'm choosing Betty. Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory versus Opeth's Still Life, and yeah, gotta go Still Life. And Gojira versus Helmet. If this was almost any other Helmet album, I probably would choose it over Gojira, but it's Betty, which I do love. It's just not as influential to me as other albums, like Size Matters, which I think is a dangerously underrated album. But yeah, I'm gonna go Gojira from Mars to Sirius. And here we go, Opeth versus Gojira. My second favorite Gojira album versus my probably second or third favorite Opeth album. But in the overall grand scheme of things, Opeth means a lot more to me than Gojira, so I'm gonna go Opeth. And now we're down to the finals. Dream Theater with Images and Words versus Opeth's Still Life, and Images and Words is my favorite album of everything listed here, so as much as I love Still Life, as a fucking classic, I'm going with Dream Theater's Images and Words. And there you have it, folks. Dream Theater's Images and Words of all the albums that were picked out here is my favorite album of this Brackets Fights with Best Metal Albums. I've had a really fun time doing this, and I hope you enjoyed as well. If you agree, disagree, or just want to leave any other kind of comment, you know what to do. Same with liking, subscribing, any of that stuff. I would very much appreciate it, but if you don't, you don't. Perfectly fine. Until the next time I do some kind of bracket fight, maybe a tier list, we'll see what comes next. For Heavy Debriefings, this is Josh Runquist saying, see ya.